everything coming, and it's all I need. Everything I wanted.
It does just make me smile.
It does. It's pretty good. We gotta get
the best for a song.
Yeah.
The best for a song. How are you doing, Bondor? How's
Doing
how's
good,
the
man.
world going in your world?
Just chugging through, trying to set some stuff up. It's just painful. No, that's not right. Okay, you gotta do it again. No, that's not right. Okay, you gotta do it again. Development. That's how it is.
Man, it's funny to me how the stop and go nature of like development or rather like everything has a stop and go nature to it. It's like if you're gonna plant, trees or whatever it is, or like plant a garden in my case, it's like you got to do all the planting and then you just kind of wait, and then you got to get in there and weed it every day, and then you got to wait. It's like just the stop and go back and forth is kind of built in everything. It's the same thing with like working out, but it's just interesting how, I don't know, we're gonna get into an existential thing about, in my mind, of everything physics and God, and it's gonna get deep, but it's so funny. Yeah, so for today, I would love to actually talk with you about, and again, for anybody just tuning in for the first time, this is gonna be, or not, this is just open forum conversation, better by Bitcoin, where the whole thinking and premise is just how does Bitcoin make things better? So the double entendre of you should buy it, but if you do buy it and when you do buy it, everything, the rising tide of Bitcoin will make everything better. And my personal take is kind of advertising. I love advertising. I love the messaging and marketing problem of things. And so I'm always trying to kind of approach different things in this world about how do you tell that story? How do you sell this? How do you make people actually care about it? And so that's just kind of me, JD. You want to give a quick take on you?
Yeah, Bondor, I've been in Bitcoin for a bit now, and I got to get better at getting it down quick and easy. Presently, developer, but I've worked in film and entertainment, written a bunch, and also worked in finance, and had a whole slew of things here in Los Angeles with JD. So
it's good. Well, we also
trying to figure it out. Fiat ruins everything, and I've done a lot of things, and Fiat's ruined all of them, and so now we're trying to. There's not much else you can do except for attack Fiat.
Oh man,
via Bitcoin. So
I saw, actually, maybe we'd start here, and then because I would love to talk today about StackMath, which goes into, and maybe it should be StackMaths, just like Bitcoins for the OGs. But I saw today this tweet from a guy who let me see if I can pull it up. But he was the bad guy. So it was this tweet from
SBF.
Yeah, no, the Bitcoin bad guy, but he was posting a thread from a tweet he had, and I'll pull it up really quick. Let me just actually get this pulled up here so I'm not doxing myself. But he window. No, let's do. If I double click, I can make this go full screen. But he was kind of positing a way for the Bitcoin strategic reserve to happen, or rather, it was like more of a theory. And I actually really agree with this theory. The theory was they're going to audit Fort Knox. Not only is the gold not going to be there, but there will be a shit ton more gold than anyone had expected. Gold will pump hard. The U.S. will dump gold on the rest of the world for tens of trillions of dollars and then pump all that into Bitcoin, creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Bitcoin goes to millions. Sailor.
Pay off all the debt.
Dude, I just love this theory, though, because, he's right. Sailor has said this idea and kind of brought that out there. And a friend of his was like, I like your head's at, I hope that this audit works. And they're supposed to live stream it. But actually, this, to me, would play directly to what I think Trump's greatest strength is, which is theater. Trump is a master marketer, and he's a master kind of like, I call him a magician in my mind. He's a messaging magician, because if you're going to do, like, right now, the most important thing happening in the world is not the Epstein client list. It's everything happening in the background that Trump doesn't want you to pay attention to. The Epstein client list and the amount of fervor and everything he's making happening right now, like, what is actually happening today are probably some of the biggest moves that nobody's talking about.
Yeah. This is all, like, the Epstein thing and the way it's playing out is 100% for the purpose of distracting from something else. There's no way they would do it like this. They would have just put it online. Who cares? Whatever. But this is like a media publicity stunt. And it's like, this is not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
something else is going on.
Yep. And I love that. And I think that to me aligns with this theory that Bad Guy BTC has, because from my perspective, just as an advertiser and as a marketer, this is pure good political theater. And this particular thing that Bad Guy is saying is the political theater of, and this is why also I think we're seeing this, like, the comics of all the people like shipping their gold to Fort Knox, like Fort Knox going crazy. I do believe this is the first time rehypothecated gold is kind of getting called, if you will. And so they're basically just like, hey, remember that gold that we sold you? We need to buy it back. And so we're seeing this huge inflow of gold, quote unquote. But what we're actually seeing is just kind of the shell game in New York. And we're seeing all of these gold people move all their gold to these comics stores and wherever they are. And again, this is my ignorance. I don't really know what, the indexes are or whatever when it comes to gold. And you can probably give some more insight on that, because I know you have a finance background, Bondor. But the thing that's interesting to me about this,
I have no insight. Nothing.
Okay, on the gold side. I just love this because the fact that Trump has telegraphed that he wants to go to Fort Knox, the fact that he's telegraphed that he knows Jay Powell has to do what he says, that tells me everything I need to know that Trump knows the Ponzi is up to a degree. The thing he did yesterday with or 2 days ago with the Trump gold card, as he's calling it, which I love that he's calling it the Trump America gold card, to like pay $5 million and get a U.S. green card. You're not getting citizenship, you're getting a green card, but you get a U.S. passport. That's awesome, because all of that to me tells me that Trump understands the fiat Ponzi, and he understands that the only way that the fiat Ponzi doesn't unravel is for them to fix the main balance sheet, which is the U.S. balance sheet. And so if he can fix the U.S. dollar balance sheet and keep the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency, i.e. the powerhouse currency, but then back it with a hard currency like Bitcoin, it is actually the only way to stop a Weimar-style event from happening here. That's my take on it, though. But I think this could play directly into that, because you then just redump all this rehypothecated gold back on everybody else, and you move the Ponzi bucks into Bitcoin, but then you've actually moved the Ponzi bucks into Bitcoin and actually set the floor of Bitcoin where it should be. And so I'm actually like, as a Bitcoiner, this was pretty cool, because it's a way of destroying the system without causing massive chaos. Maybe we want the chaos, but I don't know. I feel like massive chaos.
Well, no, nobody wants chaos. But we've talked about this before. The whole Weimar thing, like, there's just no chance of anything happening. Even if we continue on our own current path with only the technology that exists right now, there's no Weimar future. Those, like, that kind of system is like completely over. Now, what you're talking about is actually pretty interesting, but I have to spend more time thinking about it. I only just saw the little note today that was like, oh yeah, we're doing a $5 million citizenship. The first thing comes to mind is like, that's not enough money. You just like make it like $10 million at least, because the people who are interested in purchasing that, if they have $5 million, bro, they have $10 million. If they have $5 million, they have $10 million. Like,
the other contingencies on it, though, so actually that's a great point. There's other contingencies on it. Let me see if I can pull it up. You have to bring, it's like you pay $5 million for the thing. Actually, let me see if I can just get Grok to give me, what are all of the stats on the Trump gold card? It's like you pay $5 million. You have to bring 5 jobs, or you have to create 5 jobs. you have to do a minimum investment. So it's like it's kind of like the fee at the country club is the way I look at it. The $5 million is the fee at the country club, but it's not
Yeah.
the entire thing. It's like $5 million to join, and then you have to do so many other things that are super interesting. And Grok is taking forever to actually get me this info, but it's like thinking right now. Oh, so it's a minimum investment of $500,000, and let's see, minimum investment $500,000, and you have to create at least 10 jobs. And so yeah, it's like a bigger thing than just that, and it's also merit based. So it's like all these simple things. Let's see. Yeah, the viewers don't care about me reading stuff, but yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I was like, I need to move this to a different thing so I can actually share the screen without doxing my nim. But I'll do that for next time, for next week. Cool. Yeah. So that was my take though on the Fort Knox thing. Do you have any thoughts on Fort Knox Theater before we jump into Stack Math?
No, Fort Knox. It might even just be the same thing as like, let's make Canada a state. It's like, what does he actually want?
I don't know, man. Gulf of America is pretty awesome. So just gonna say.
Yeah, but there's no consequence. No, it's like literally just, well, whatever. We're just going to change some database entries. Cool. It's done.
No, for sure. It's literally just to make people scream. It's the best. He's literally just doing it to make everybody upset. It's
yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. Speaking of things that aren't going to make you upset, Stack Math. So tell me, I'm going to share.
Yeah, we gotta walk through it on your
share my screen. But for somebody who is mathematically challenged like myself at times, walk me through this because it looks awesome and intimidating.
So you're basically looking at a visualization of what we're all familiar with, which is the Bitcoin drawdown calculator, or just any retirement calculator, right? Except you're looking at the visual form of that calculator. Now, there's a bunch of complication, which kind of makes it a little bit more difficult to understand, which we'll go through when we do the tutorial. But just as some background noise here, basically every single calculator out there that I've seen fails to account for ergodicity and the probability of events. So, and
what is ergodicity?
Ergodicity is like if you have a range, like if something is ergodic, if it has the property of being ergodic, it will go, like you give it enough time, it will traverse every possible area in that range, even if it's like has normal distribution or something like that. So ergodicity, you can think of ergodicity as like, if you give it enough time, you will see every point that's possible. Okay. Now, that's important for plotting Bitcoin because, as we know, or as we believe, Bitcoin follows a price trajectory, and it's like that's where all the Bitcoin price models come from and everything else. But those prices are a range. They do not follow a straight line, and if you put it in a range, you should expect that the Bitcoin price travels through that range. Now, it might not travel and hit every point in that range and be like truly ergodic, but if it's not traveling in the range, then your calculator is just garbage because you're just going on a straight line. And that's just, it's impossible to plan or do any drawdown on it.
So it's essentially a like a conservation of matter type or conservation of momentum type situation, right? So it's like if I'm looking at this, and this is again just me trying to make sense of this, but it's like if you kick the ball up in the air and you know about where the, I don't know, is it apogee or whatever it is, but you know where the apex, the top uppermost point is, it's going to come back down and bounce off of the bottommost point again. And so you can the ergodicity
There you go.
is an assumption that the ball is going to bounce roughly within this range, essentially, right? That's kind of the way to think about it, or a way to
I
think about
would
this.
I would more align, like, I don't necessarily think of like a ball bouncing is the right thing, because you need a container. Like,
Okay.
you can't have ergodicity without a container. So think of like a marble, like in a box, and you're just shaking the box.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's going to happen with that marble? It's like, it's just going to be going every single where, right? Every single place it can go in the box, it's just going to be bouncing around. Now, if you bounce it around in the box for whatever, 5 minutes, you're going to hit 20, 30, 40% of the space in the box or something, right? And like, oh, well, not like it didn't hit this, exact location, or molecularly, it's like this, it was just a little bit molecule off of this location. But if you just sit there shaking a box for whatever 10,000 years, you will hit every single possible place in the box. The marble will be every single possible place.
So what you're saying is everyone in the world understands ergodicity if you've ever been born in the 90s and watched this for several hours.
Exactly. The
ergodicity is DVD
ergodicity,
screensaver.
Yes, excellent. Now, there's different probability. Like, this DVD screensaver has a certain path, and it seems pretty defined. But if you like put probabilities on it, where it's like 90% of the time it's in the right hand of the screen, but for that 10% of the time that it's on the left hand of the screen, it's still there, and you draw it out. If you watch it for 10 minutes, you'll say like, oh, it's never going to fill up the left side of the screen because it's always on the right side of the screen. Like, it doesn't matter. That is still an ergodic system, right?
Got it.
So ergodicity, I found out about it through Taleb and either Fooled by Randomness or one of those other books. But that it's a fundamental principle of all sorts of systems. And if you don't follow and understand the system, well, you're not going to have a strong understanding of, or if you don't follow the system in terms of its actual behavior, you're not going to have a good, strong understanding of predicting what can happen next in that system.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the same thing as like Tiger Woods, right? If you're looking at an ergodic distribution of Tiger Woods' performances, it's like you're going to have those moments where he's sick and those moments where he's having an A+ day, and so you get to, over a long enough time horizon, see all of the probabilities of he wins the Masters and he, cheats on his wife and is on the side of the road in handcuffs. Like, you'll have all of those opportunities to see all that stuff, right?
Sure.
That's kind of
despite their improbabilities. Yeah.
Despite their improbabilities.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Also, Tiger Woods, I think you're fantastic, but you don't get mad at me for that. So, okay. Continue then. So this
Let's actually just do the tutorial, because it really does answer all of these questions in sequence for the purpose of answering these questions. Cool. So anybody out there, please just do the tutorial, follow along. You'll be able to check it out yourself and play and spin all the knobs and whatever. It's also just StackMath.XYZ is the address if you wanted to do it at home. So I cannot read it on that super small screen over there.
Yeah, maybe we don't. Maybe let's just run one, actually, because maybe instead of doing the full tutorial, because people can just kind of run that on their own. What if we just kind of like ran a scenario of, like, I'll just give you my scenario, right? And it's, I won't use my exact scenario, but let's just say, let's run the American HODL scenario, right? The 6.125, the perfect amount of Bitcoin scenario. 6.125. So if I am American HODL and I have my perfect 6.125 amount of Bitcoin, now what? So I put in the amount of Bitcoin that I have. Where do we go next?
Okay. So you can click on, live off Bitcoin on the bottom.
Yep.
Click on that. Now, this is your retirement drawdown, essentially. This says that in 2033, you are going to start spending $100,000 worth of your Bitcoin every year in perpetuity.
Got it.
And what's important about that number is that, one thing you need to note rather is that it's inflation adjusted. So it's not actually $100,000. It's whatever the inflation adjusted amount, assuming 8% inflation between now and then. So it's $100,000 of real money today. Like, so if you expect that inflation will be 8% every year for the next, whatever that is, 8 years, then that is the amount of money you will be spending down per year. So it's considerably above $100,000.
Got it.
Especially 8%, right? So it's probably like 200, 230, something like that. Okay, so that's what it is. So now if you close that.
Yep. Sorry, I have to name it correctly. Okay, so for HODL's perfect amount of Bitcoin drawdown.
Right. So for HODL's perfect amount of Bitcoin drawdown, starting at 2033, if that's your retirement date, and then you drag your mouse to the end of the graph, you can see where the dotted green line ends, and that number is
4.05.
4.05. So that is the 50th percentile. So that is the percentile amount left that you have in your, like, it's the most likely outcome.
Got it. So the most likely outcome, yes, yep. And so that's the most likely outcome, assuming, like, if you put like a death date on this, or do you put? I guess end date is optional. Got it. So I could put an end date in here. It's like, you know, let's assume you want to go to. I plan to live to be 100, and I plan to live to see the final block mined. That's my goal. So if we're going to, you know,
140.
December of, yeah. So 2140 as the last date.
Well, I don't know if you can even go that long. So you have to go click on model.
Nice.
It's just going to be way better if we do the tutorial, man.
Okay.
But this is good. And then you have to increase the epoch count to like 30 or something. Does it even get to 30? Does it? Yeah, it does. We do get there. Okay. So yeah, you got to increase the epoch count to 30.
Got it. Oh yeah, perfect.
And that puts us to 140 years, or 2140. And then there you can see it is.
Because this assumes then at that point in time, I died.
What date did you die? Yeah, 2063.
So I died in 2064. Yeah, because if I died, I'm not going to be spending any more Bitcoin. So that makes sense. So if I got to see, we're user testing. We're testing for the fringe user that's going to break my system. Okay. If I lived until the last block, I would still theoretically have 1.61 Bitcoin left. What this says.
Yeah, let's see. 6.15. Yeah.
I have 1.625 left.
Mm-hmm.
So I would argue HODL's right. 6.125 is the perfect amount of Bitcoin. Because you literally will have Bitcoin, or your family should have Bitcoin up until the point when the last block is mined, and we just get into the fee subsidy area, or the fee only era.
And this is also, keep in mind, you'll see how it's like a S-shaped drawdown.
Yep.
That's because the 8% inflation is at 100 years from now. 8% inflation, like you're talking about the whatever that is.
Yeah.
100 years from now.
Use 100 or whatever.
Yeah, one Bitcoin is worth $5 trillion or $13 trillion. It's just
10 trillion dollars. Yeah.
But you see that the S shape because the inflation at 8% inflation, that outstrips Bitcoin's logarithmic growth, which is, we're using the power law model here. So exponential growth outstrips logarithmic growth on a long enough timeline. Consequently, the, you know, in the middle, it starts to get flat. Like, oh yeah, we're going to survive this, but then inflation catches up and it just like tanks it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so let's actually just tweak this though to be more correct. So if we're gonna do, you know, the number of epochs that's for like a normal human, so 10 is where you had it before. Let's even just do, you know, let's do, you know, 64 years. Let's do 16 epochs. So power law, is that the one that Plan B popularized?
No, I think Plan B is stock to flow. So
Stock
power
to
law
flow.
is the, I forget the guy's name, but the guy who markets himself, styles himself a mathematician.
Got it.
But yeah, power law support, which is it's just another power law. Rainbow chart, which is the famous rainbow chart, and then CAGR, stock to flow refit, and stock to flow, and historic. So historic is just taking the highs and the lows of every Bitcoin, of every actual Bitcoin recorded price, just applying that to the halving, where it happened in the halving.
Oh, interesting. So let's actually look at that one for a second, because I'm actually very curious to do this one. Let me actually move this to less obnoxious. So let's do 21 or 2100. Sure. Okay. Why is this crazy? Because this looks like Weimar, in my opinion. Like, this is like Weimar level inflation when you're just doing historic.
Yeah, so, but you can see, you look at the historic, like the first 15 years of Bitcoin, it's like rounding out. Yeah. So the reason this graph looks like this is because it's just applying, well, year one, or epoch one, it was like, whatever, 200 CAGR, or whatever it was, right? Yeah. And then it's just like adding that to, you know, indefinitely, and that'll be the top of the channel. And then it's taking like year or epoch, or current epoch, I forgot, 4, whatever it is. And it's just making that the bottom of the channel. So the consequences there is that the top of the channel is at 200 CAGR, and the bottom is at whatever 30 CAGR.
Got it. So yeah, like the top of this channel is, or the bottom of this channel is million, billion, trillion, zillion, one past zillion, whatever that is. And then the top of this channel is, I don't even know.
Yeah, it's honestly, it just completely breaks down. It makes no sense to use it. Unless you just want to use, so it's presently set to, if you do historic and you have it at 2, like, it can be interesting when you bring it down to like, we're already 2. When we get to more epochs, then it's going to be more interesting, because you'll start to see like, oh, okay, at this point in the channel, at this point in the halving cycle, like the price is higher or the price is lower. Right? You actually be able to see the channel as it builds throughout.
Got it.
80 years.
So
it's just whatever.
Let's assume that I do have this 6.125 though, and I'm just, or actually, let's assume you're somebody who's just starting now and you have 1 Bitcoin. Let's even just do that. So let's all right. No, but let's finish the HODL example. 6.125, not 16. 6.125. 6.125. Oh, come on. Okay, there we go. And let's get this into like a stock to flow type situation. What's the refit, by the way? 2024 refit, like they just kind of redid it.
He just redid it for 2024.
Got it. Oh, come on, zoom out. Don't go all bananas on me. Okay. This all makes sense. But what are the different like walk strategies? So these are the So, you
So
can't see
as
money,
we were
but
talking
there's
about before
bubble.
with the ergodicity,
Mhm.
so when you're shaking the box, and then like if you're shaking a box, but like you can't, like it just doesn't. You put padding on one side of the box, and like slowly eats away the padding, but it's like going crazy in the other side of the box. That's basically what the walk strategy is. Now there's a thousand different ways you can do that, but essentially, if you can actually see all the walk strategies the best by setting the volatility to 0. So when you set the volatility to 0, you actually see the pattern, like the walk pattern, if there's no volatility, if you're not like actually shaking the box. And
Mm.
it's very ugly on stock to flow because the ups and, or because of the nature of the channel. So it's better to just do it on like not stock to flow, anything with stock to flow, and not historic either.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. So sine pattern goes up like just like a sine wave. 3 red or 3 green, 1 red. 3 years up, 1 year down. 3 years up, 1 year down.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's cool. It's a lot of information, I think, for myself, or probably for most people to digest. But like, let's say, what would you say if you had the HODL's perfect amount of Bitcoin? What would be the most realistic based on your assumptions? Like, where would you build your model? And I'm sure you have it in the tutorial, but I'm just kind of curious, like, what would you build, and like, what would you think on this?
I mean, so at 6.125 Bitcoin, like just look at live off Bitcoin, annual amount 100,000, and then just set it to today and see if.
Would you do Power Law, or would you do Cigar, or which of the models would you use?
Power Law.
What's
It's just
your
easy.
favorite model? Power Law, okay. And then support
Well,
line
it's
or
just
regression?
it doesn't matter.
Okay,
Both are essentially the same.
got it.
People get
Volatility 1 or volatility?
No, yeah, volatility 1. Yeah, volatility 1. Sorry.
Okay.
So it's still 0.
So volatility 1. Okay. So volatility 1, and then effective date today. Save. Boom. All right.
Oh, this is, you got what are your settings on? That's crazy.
So my settings are walk strategy momentum.
Momentum. Okay.
Bubble. And so it's power law, regression, median, bubble, volatility 1, 16 epochs, and sample count is 1,000. All right.
Why is it so crazy, bro?
I don't know, man. I broke it. 6.125 inflate. All right, let's go see. Let's see where we're at here. So, active 100,000, expenses, effective date is today, end date optional. So, all of these assume it's super.
Yeah, this is like not even readable. I'd just refresh. Maybe there's something wrong. Maybe there's a bug in there.
Let's refresh. Let's see if it'll let me refresh the page. Nice. Okay.
So then, yeah, just reset to 6.15. I mean, this is the setting that I like. Just keep it at the default setting because it's. I put it at the default because this would be the one that like makes the most sense to me intellectually, and then I can just I don't have to worry about setting the model.
Got it.
But yeah, reset the date to today.
Okay, so come in here. Live off of Bitcoin starting today. Save. Boom. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what this essentially means is if you just started drawing down and you were paying, and it's $100,000 a year, right? Yeah, annual. Theoretically, this says you should get to 2064 with 0.3 Bitcoin left.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep. But that's
cool.
Again on average, and then if you look at the top of the chart, the highest, like it basically tracks. Yeah. basically tracks the price and then draws down according to whatever the price is when you do that sale on that day for 1,000 samples. And so on some of those samples and the price itself will be like way higher. And so when you're selling at $100,000 worth adjusted for inflation, you are selling way less Bitcoin. And so you have this range that develops. And at the top of that range, you have the maximum of 1.7 Bitcoin left. At the bottom, the minimum of that range, you will run out of Bitcoin in 2047, as opposed to it lasting for the duration till 2061.
Got it. That makes sense. So it would be interesting from a user perspective, if some of those stats were like over here in my drawdown category. And actually, it would even be curious. What's this guy? So this is like, so you can add a drawdown event. Okay, interesting. So I have to like pay off my house or pay off a car or something like that. Yeah.
You add any amount of events, and there's different types of events too in the start type.
Yeah, this is like the Bloomberg of Bitcoin calculators. There's a lot of great insight in here, but I feel like my mom would look at this and decide it's more valuable to go watch more soap operas, which is funny. Cool. Yeah. So StackMath, jump in here, you can run through the tutorial, do the proper thing. Oh, look at that. It's actually even just running you through the whole thing. So that's cool.
Correct, yes.
It shows me how to not be completely regarded.
It's the full tutorial about everything that it can do. I mean, in fact, this last part, don't do the tutorial anymore. Just like stick on this. This one is super, I think, important. Change the inflation down to 2.
Let's do 2.
That was one.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay. So you're looking at this. What this is telling you, right? This is telling you that you are starting with 0 Bitcoin. Today you have 0 Bitcoin, and for the next, whatever that is, 20 years of work or 30 years of work, you're going to be saving. Because I can't read it. For the next 20 years of work, you are saving $5,000 of Bitcoin per year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, or 30 years work, and then you are spending down $185,000 worth of Bitcoin in retirement. So and that's adjusted for inflation, assuming what the inflation is. So now, again, we set that to 2.
Inflation, yeah.
Yeah. So we set inflation for 2. This is the Fed's target inflation, right? At the day you retire, you have accumulated 0.196 Bitcoin, and it's worth
10 million bucks, roughly.
Times, something like that. Let's see, 1.6. On that day, it would be worth $2 to $3 million. And then you're spending it down as you age into retirement, right? Now, of course, the amount of spend per year in retirement is going to be different. When you first retire, you're super active and you want to go travel and your cost of living is high. Then at some point, your old age catches up with you and you're just kind of surviving, and so your cost of your lifestyle is not as much, and then your lifestyle increases when medical costs really catch up to you, and it's just like the whole explosion in spending because you want to stay alive for longer. So you don't have this flat, this even spend, but that's beside the point. Talk to a financial advisor. The point that I want to nail home here is that the Fed's target is 2% inflation. You can survive on 2% inflation, according to this, from the day you retire, and you'll be set, right? Change it to 3% inflation. And as we already saw, change it to 4% inflation. Change it to 8% inflation, which is probably more in line because of the money supply. Now, with 8% inflation, your retirement is completely wrecked. If you want to have a $180,000 a year lifestyle, so it's explicitly inflation, which steals lives and completely just like years of lives, and destroys the world essentially.
Yeah,
It
which
just completely guts people's, like, all the work they did their entire life, guts it.
Yeah, I think what's interesting on something like this is actually, the I would be very curious if you could feed something like this into like a Grok or a Claude or a GPT and have it kind of craft the story. It's like, can this write a baby mandibles that's like positive or a baby mandibles that's not positive? To kind of give you a full picture of what's actually going on and help people understand what they're looking at. Because having you break it down for me like that, as I'm like, oh, like it totally makes sense. And this right here is honestly scary. Like it's a scary,
Mm-hmm.
this is a scary chart for someone who has not started stacking.
Yeah.
That's the truth here. And I do think this is most people, right? And I think
It's
we've
basically
talked.
everybody. Yeah.
It's basically everybody, and we've talked offline and part of the impetus about the name behind what we're doing right now is Bitcoin is the rising tide. Bitcoin is the rising tide, and there's going to be a need for Bitcoiners who have a lot of Bitcoin to start paving the way for what people should be spending their money on. And I believe Bitcoiners are going to build cathedrals again. We're going to get back to a point where like St. Peter's Basilica in London is going to become a thing again. Like there's going to be a reason for people to want to rebuild,
Mm-hmm.
a new version of the Vatican in the United States somewhere. There's going to be a reason for people to value their time and value their work and value their effort when it's no longer stole from them. And so I think that's an interesting thing to codify as a story, because most people don't get it because they've been born in, well, yeah, who even boomers, right? Boomers were the generation that were born when the US government broke money.
Yep.
We became, this
Well, no,
last generation.
they came to age. They entered the workforce when the U.S. government broke money in 1970.
Got it. Yeah. So
everything, yeah, they basically had childhood, everything was great and gravy, and then work, and it was just the only way to survive is you have to have a house. If you don't have a house, you're wrecked. Your life is over.
Yep. Yeah. We have some people we know in Italy, and it's like, unemployment for young people there's like 30%, probably 40%, like real unemployment. And the idea of owning a house is not even an idea that they entertain.
Wow.
Because the house you're going to own is your parents' house. You're going to inherit it when they die. And so you're going to live there until you're 50, unless you can find somebody else and have a job. So you need to find two people who have jobs to be able to even think about moving somewhere. But most of the time, you're probably not going to want to move anywhere because it's like you can't even afford childcare. And so, why would you move? Yeah, it's just wild. It's super wild. I'm hopeful because Bitcoin is in the world, but I know a lot of Bitcoiners say Bitcoin has won, but it's like there's just so much that has to go right for this to actually
so much has to change. One of the things that's I think important about the graph you're looking at is that 5,000 is not just arbitrary. I mean, it's kind of arbitrary, but it's like that's essentially your maximum contribution for an IRA every year. And if that's going straight into Bitcoin, like that's it, right? Obviously, you can say Bitcoin outside of an IRA, but like that's it. Like that's what you get, unless the system changes. unless we, to exactly what you're saying, unless we start actually fixing the problems, which are tremendous and huge and everywhere.
Mm. Yeah, and in this scenario, you never.
Oh, and that 5,000 is actually interesting. So the 5,000 is inflation adjusted. So if you click on it, so that would be like whatever. If it doubles every 10 years, you'd be contributing 10,000 in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So to account for that, so click on it, and it says annual percentage change. Lower it by the inflation rate of 8.
Mm. So you have even less. Yeah, so the top is.
Oh no, wait, you're doing increasing it. You need to lower it, so -8.
Oh, -8. There we go. Yeah,
so that's more in line with actual your actual IRA contributions, because that number in the IRA, that $5,000, like that's never going to change unless they change the law, which means that the purchasing power of that is just going to continue to decrease. It's just the exact same thing with like when they added the qualified distribution for a home. You're able to take out $10,000 to put a down payment on a home, which is like an appropriate amount the year it was added. But I like recently went back and did the math on it, and it should be inflation adjusted today somewhere around $30,000, which would be an appropriate amount for a average home in America, $400,000 home, right? It's like, okay, cool, you can withdraw through like $30,000. That's almost 10% down. You can probably scrounge together some more elsewhere, but like no. The law hasn't changed. Inflation has picked up and destroyed all of it. So you still today can only withdraw $10,000 for a qualified distribution towards the house. It's just like you can't. Like at no point will that ever, like, unless they inflation adjust it, and they'll only inflation adjust it to like official inflation rate 1, right? And it's just like it doesn't. Like as time goes on, it becomes increasingly meaningless. Like the whole system just breaks itself because of inflation. It's unbelievable.
So you could escape if your annual is 2% and 2% is actually the number. So if the Fed weren't lying, you could get there. But because of the reality that we all know that average real inflation is closer to 8%, it's very unlikely.
Yeah.
It's wild. That's wild, man. Well, this is really cool. I really love the fact that I have something that I can try to look at now. I might shoot you some thoughts on things like clicking in or locking or making it easier for me to see things as a user, but that's something we can offline on. But if anybody watching has any thoughts for Bondor and they want to jump in there, I think I know he'd love to hear them. But it is really cool to it's cool to have all of this information at my fingertips. It's probably a little more than most people need, but at the same time, like, you don't know what you don't know, so it's actually great to kind of have everything to kind of like look at it and get a greater understanding of it, and then also be able to be like, hey, for my kids and my kids' kids and all that stuff. So this is super cool. Why did you make this?
I mean, the practical reality of it was that we were like going through the process of like, okay, what's our job situation? What's the like how long can we afford to, apply for jobs but not get a job? And like being a developer, I don't know if you've ever seen the recent like stats on it. It was like 2022 developer jobs are the most in-demand jobs. 2024 developer jobs are the least in-demand jobs. So basically, this was made for the purpose of like trying to answer the question, like, okay, how long can we like live on this, given like the crazy volatility in Bitcoin, given the price projections, given our or the price models, given our needs and our like what are like how are we going to live, and like what are the consequences, like what are the opportunity costs and consequences of doing this, and like how does this all fit together, what are all the pieces here. So I made this tool to answer the question for myself, like how much is enough, like and do we have enough, and like how much time do we have, and like what's the pressure, and it's like okay, now like you can see what the things are, I can see our expenses, we can see like, okay, cool, this is what our family does, this is how we can make it, this is the lifestyle we can afford, like the whole thing. So yeah, that's what I made it. For me personally, that's like the impetus. But then you can like, I threw it up and just like, okay, this is, you only, because with all financial planning, it's all like, all of it's so probabilistic, and you never know when you're going to get hit by a car, and so you're predicting the future, and it's just uncertainties on uncertainties, and it's just, it's almost irrelevant, right, at some point. And so you can just like whip together a super easy version, which I did in like a week and a half, and I was like, okay, cool, like, my questions are answered, I don't need to look at this anymore. But then it like started to whatever, scratch an itch, where it was like, this is, no, you can do way more with this. And if people understand it, if they go through the process of trying to learn what ergodicity is and what Monte Carlo's simulations are, which we didn't even touch on, and then like actually like putting these pieces together and thinking through this processing and the probabilities involved in the whole thing, well, then you can really start to like break apart not necessarily break apart, but like soften this die-hard absurdity of always stack sats because you're not inhuman if you don't. And it's like, no, the thing that makes me human is the fact that I'm connected to reality and have responsibilities and a family and rent to pay and like all these other factors that go in. Like, okay, cool, I'm not the only person in my life, like I'm responsible for other people. Like how does all these pieces connect? Because it can't just be stack sats, like sell your wife, sell your kids, like sell all, like, and just no, that's not reality. Like, come on, guys. So
that's funny.
Yeah, and then it gives you, it gives people options, it gives people insight about what they believe, and where to add all these settings, because I wanted to make sure that people had a really clear, because everyone's situation is totally different. You can't just be like, oh yeah, 6.15, it always works. It's like, no, it doesn't always work, because your situation is going to be different than his situation. Like, if you have kids, well, then what's their schooling cost? Like, let's hope you don't send them to private school or to public school, right? So, like, are you going to do private school? Are you going to do homeschool? Like, what are the costs for there? Like, and it just goes on and on. It's a whole process. Like, financial planning is a huge process that really takes a lot of effort and thought and contingencies to flesh out. So.
This is cool. This is a great tool to kind of help the layman try and get a better understanding of like what just what their Bitcoin future could look like. It's hard though, kind of knowing we have like a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and we have all these things kind of like on the horizon to kind of like wrap your head around it. But I'm optimistic that we can get onto a Bitcoin standard in some way, shape, or form. But we'll see. We'll see what
we'll see
what happens with the world.
Again, StackMath.XYZ. Check it out. Send me feedback if you find bugs. Also, highly recommend do the tutorial. We only touched on like a handful of the stuff, but the tutorial really walks through the whole point and purpose and connects all the dots and answers all the whatever. What's it called? It answers all the definitions and paints the full picture about what you can do and how to think about it and the whole thing. So,
no, love it.
Check it out.
Love it. If you are in, the greater LA area, you should try and hit up some meetups. There's a couple of them everywhere. We do one every so often, and so if people want to check out that one, check out Nella Bitcoiners. But then you should definitely check out BTC Pins down in
Indeed, yeah.
Hawthorne. You should check out meetups. Great places to find them, like Orange Pill app. I'm not just trying to plug them, just plugging some things, because I think the bigger piece in all of this is the world gets better with Bitcoin, but in order to make Bitcoin a thing, you need to actually be like with Bitcoiners. So if you have questions or you're curious about Bitcoin, like go to a meetup, go and meet some people in the meet space, because Bitcoiners just love Bitcoin and they just want to talk about it. So you probably have an easier time getting them to shut up about Bitcoin than you will, getting them to, or rather, harder time getting them to shut up about Bitcoin than you will to have them to shut up about it. But I love this stuff. So cool. Well, that was the main thing I want to chat on today. I just think StackMath is great. There's a lot of really positive, like awesome, just like stuff and value on it. And so if people have any questions, shoot it over to Gilded Plebe. And yeah, do you have anything else for the rest of this week, Bondo, or is that a good place to wrap it out, you think?
Let's do it.
Cool. Thanks everybody for watching, and looking forward to seeing you next week.
Peace.
Got a good thing coming, and it's all I